for today's talk. It's somebody asked me, I said, what should I talk about? And they requested to talk about stillness. I love that topic for many, many reasons. And one of the reasons is, because of its basic lack in our modern world. So hard, rare to see people who are still, who are not going anywhere, not trying to change things. Good to see people changing what deserves to be changed. Like, just coming back from overseas. It's amazing how many people, just wherever you go, just say, we see you on YouTube every night. And was it they said, please don't tell people this, but they go to bed with Ajahn Brahm every night. I said, what? I'm innocent. And what they mean is they listen to me on YouTube every evening. They wake up with me every morning. I said, please don't say that because people might get the wrong idea. But it makes them peaceful. And that peace, that stillness is so rare in this world. And the therapeutic benefit of stillness, not the words, not even just someone being around you, just stillness by itself is such a beautiful quality which we often miss in our world. Even though once, remember just going with another spiritual person, and then they told me it was by the beach in Bunbury, and they asked me, said, what does the beach feel like to you as a spiritual person? You know what I said? I said the beach is noisy. And they were stunned by that, because the beach was the place they went, like for fun, for a sense of the infinity. I said, no, it's so noisy, all those waves coming and going. And I said, I like the forest, because there's more stillness in a forest. Yeah, there's not a great expanse of infinities of seeing, but so quiet, especially the Australian forest. You go to forests over the world, and especially the rainforest, there's so much noise there, so many animals messing around. Even at night time, the cicadas can be deafening. But the Australian forest, at night time, hardly anything moves. It's totally still. If you don't like the forest, if you can go into the bush, 100 miles, well, say I've been to the United States, miles, 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers away from the city, and nothing moves. And the stillness is spiritual. Stillness is healing. Stillness is not laziness. It's like when nothing is moving, the most powerful things are happening. Sounds contradictory, but you probably understand what I mean. And just for the therapeutic benefit of stillness, as soon as I landed yesterday, after a long trip from San Francisco. And if anyone here, one of the people I went to meet was the ex-abbot here, Ajahn Brahm, John, who sends his best wishes to everybody. Because I say, who do you want to send your best wishes to? He's getting old now. And I said, look, I'm not going to remember any particular names. So, because we're both getting old, happy anything to everybody. In case he's listening. But, just the stillness, which I, after landing, I had to go to our local council office, because we also got our approval for 6 new kutis. We're not trying to outdo the nuns. They got 4, we got 6, because we've been trying to get these for 6 years now. But anyway, finally got them. But when I went there to the Shire offices in Mundijong, Serpentine Jarrahdale, We've known those people for such a long time. Really good people. They're getting to know us, but they keep changing their bosses. But I always remember this. He was a building surveyor. He's a fellow who actually signs off whether he can build or not. And not just us, but all these other sort of builders and developers and stuff. And he came to see me at Bodhinyana Monastery after lunch. And he said, I'm that person who signs off on all of your buildings. Sometimes I say no, but I'm the fellow who has to sign off on this. And he said, I just come here to thank you. And you know that sometimes when people come up and you don't know who they are, and they say thank you, and say, for what? What have I done? It's like when people overseas, they say, oh, thank you for changing my life. And I always say, for the better or for the worse? They usually say for the better. But this person said, well, what have I done? He said, it's not you I'm thanking you for, but you're the boss here, so I'm thanking you for your car park. And that was a very interesting answer to my question, what are you thanking me for? I'm thanking your car park. I said, why? And then he said that in his work, sometimes it got so stressed out, so busy, people wanted their building and license now. Sometimes I do something dramatic, because sometimes when I do give talks, people do start falling asleep, especially at the back over there. You're fine, you can sleep. So I want it now, and they get all stressed up. They stress me out. I can't do it any faster. And he said, when I get really sort of stressed and tired, said the building surveyor, he said, I get in my car, and I just, about 10 kilometers from the Monte Chong over to the Serpentine, to where the monks live. He said, I just go into your car park. I don't even get out of my car. I just sit there. It's just one of the best stress therapies I know. Not to go and talk to people, because then they'll give me advice, or they try and convert me, or they try and ask for a donation or something. I just sit in my car and just relax. And I just get the peace of the place, and it's just beautiful. That's all I need. And just having places of stillness where you can go to and suck up the stillness from outside. What a beautiful resource that could be in our world. So sometimes that's what we do have, hopefully, in our monasteries, in our city centres, in other places, because it's hard to find it elsewhere. And sometimes stillness is sacred. It's spiritual. And I say that because so often my memories of London, just a really busy city, and trying to find a place where you can just sit down and relax somewhere. Those days, you wouldn't believe it, I just had really big fuzzy hair, very curly. I remember going to a park one day. It was a sunny afternoon. I lay down just to relax. You know what happened? I said, somebody pulling my hair. It was a big fuzzy, my icon at that time was Jimi Hendrix. I have changed a lot since that time. Like a big afro hairstyle. That's what I had, 60s or 70s. And someone was pulling my hair, and I turned around. You know what it was? A duck. True. This duck saw my hair. That's really good nesting material. Pulling and pulling and pulling. Get out of here. That's something. At least it didn't actually go into my hair and lay some eggs or something. I don't know. A nest. But there's plenty of hair in there to make a lovely home for a few eggs. But anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, yes, right. So I never liked going in parks even, so sometimes they were a bit too noisy. But the place I used to try and go to was Westminster Abbey in London. It was huge. It was vast. They must have spent so much money building that, and they probably did over hundreds of years. But it was always little places you could go when no one went to, where you knew little corners there. And I just went in there just to relax. I wasn't a Christian. I just wanted spiritual peace, a place of silence, So when I went in there, that was my little hidey hole, similar to the building surveyors of Serpentine Jarradale many years ago, the car park. You'd be left alone, find peace for yourself. And it was there. But you know what happened? I went in there one day, just before I went over to town to become a monk, and I was so disappointed because they'd installed PA system. PA system, just like when people say, oh, there's a nice meditation room in the airport. Yeah, you sit down there, start to just relax your body. If anyone sees any suspicious behaviour, please notice that. Please do not leave bags unattended. Paging, Mr. Dhammaloka, your flight is leaving now. Whatever it was so noisy in those meditation rooms in the airports. So noisy in the churches and even temples. Is that what people really need? Noise? Even advice, talks, instructions. Haven't you heard this so many times? You know what to do. You just need the place, the quietness to be able to do it. And that's one of the reasons why that I encourage people here, but find quiet places, silent places. You can go to temples or monasteries. You can come to Bodhinyana Monastery in the old time and just sit quietly in that meditation room. The fellow who built our concrete water tanks a long time ago, he was just, the typical Aussie, just really rough, incredibly strong. It was just had singlet and shorts and thongs. But he was, in the end he saw this beautiful little hall where we do our meditation in. And he asked me, he said, is it all right if I look in your church, Brahm? And keep it nice and sort of friendly, Brahm. I didn't say, Bhikkhu Brahma Wangso Mahatera, but that just really puts people off, doesn't it? Just, you put all these names in there which you can't pronounce, and it puts a barrier between you and the next person. So he just called me Brahm. I got into trouble sometimes when I shortened my name, because when I went over to, the Mercedes school over in Perth, that was just next to the Catholic Cathedral, to give some talks on Buddhism and meditation to the schoolgirls. And in one class, 13 or 14 years of age, schoolgirls, the next day I saw them in Perth. I was doing some other business there. They came up to me and said, oh, you gave a talk in our school yesterday. I said, wow, you remember me? And they said, yes, of course. How can you ever forget a monk whose name is Brahm? There is an M on the end. It's not bra, it's not ladies' underwear, it's Brahm. But of course I laughed my head off and I thank those girls because I've used that story so many times. But it is when you do find a place of quiet and peace. It's so rare in this world. And that's what spirituality, I think, that's where it grows from. So when we have our beautiful little hall over there, this builder, grano worker, rough as you could expect, he came in and he said, oh, can I look inside your church? I didn't sort of argue with him, it's not a church, it's a meditation room or whatever. But he was so, actually he didn't have thongs, he had these big working boots on. And he saw the sign, you have to take your boots off. He said, no, it's okay, it'll take you forever to take those boots off, and I don't know what your feet will smell like. The rest of you doesn't smell that good, because you've been working all day in the sun. And so I said, well, look, just come in and just put your head into the door. And that's what he did. And that was a memory. These are really powerful memories, because I can visualize it right now. Just putting his head in the doorway of the meditation hall in Bodhinyana Monastery. And he was chatting, he was noisy, he was talkative, but as soon as his head went into that hall, he went so quiet. And I just let him be quiet. I never said anything, because I knew that that was a beautiful experience he was having, and I wanted him to enjoy that as long as possible. And I don't know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I can't remember exactly how long. But then afterwards, he suddenly stopped talking. And I knew he'd stopped thinking as well. And he came out afterwards, he looked at me with his bright eyes. He said, "That's good, ain't it, Brahm?" And in his beautiful way, very sweet, he was noticing just how peace had really got into him. Just for that little moment or two, being touched by the spirituality of stillness. That's one of the reasons also why many people, if they want to find some solace in the world, answers to problems, solutions to impossible situations we find ourselves in every now and again, what do people do? Think. Think. Does it make it any better? Of course not. But if you can find some stillness somewhere, and if you don't know how to find stillness in your own heart and mind, through the practice of things like meditation, to find some stillness sort of outside in these places, but in the first opening little poem of that Opening the Door of Your Heart book, I wrote this poem which I got for a long time ago. Grant yourself a moment of peace, and you realize how foolishly you've scurried about. And I like that first part. Grant yourself a moment of peace. Give yourself permission to be peaceful, to be still. It's there. You just need to take it and give yourself approval to be still. To find that place of stillness outside, and also to bring it inside of you. We do resonate with places and situations. There's some places where you feel very uncomfortable, and there are some places which literally reek of stillness. When the stillness is just so thick that you can just take it out like a chocolate cake and just eat it. That's not the best simile, but anyway, that's all that could come up. It's solid and delicious, and so you're just totally good for you. And so you actually just take a bite of stillness. And if you can notice it and know what it feels like and know how wonderful it is, after a while you don't need to think very much, because all the answers can come out of that stillness. It's why we just have all these amazing references to stillness in spirituality. Be still and know that thou art God. That's in Psalms, in the Bible. How on earth it got in there, I don't know. But stillness and the power of stillness. People think stillness is boring. But when you really get into it, it just builds in its energies. Then you really get intensely joyful and alert and spiritual, if you want. Stillness. And they have Ajahn Chah's still forest pool. The forest pool is like a mind. Still water flowing. What on earth does that mean? It means it doesn't flow out. The still water flows in. As the energy builds and builds and builds until you start to really wake up. The great stillness. We talk too much, and I am the worst. Biggest hypocrite. But I don't talk all the time. That's one of the reasons I like being on an aircraft. No one will talk to me. And someone Sometimes, what is it? This even happened to me again this time. Sometimes that you look for some place to escape because people are talking to you and they'd want to get you to sign their books, to have a photograph. So, in the US, I prefer the US name for the toilet. Restroom. The one place I can hide to take a rest. But, once again, it didn't work. I went into the restroom and this guy was coming out, Ajahn Brahm, would you mind if I asked you to sign my book? In the toilet? I objected, and I think quite rightly so. But I signed it anyway. So anyway, the stillness, a place where you can go where you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to do anything. All that busyness stops. Like the whole world stops. If you ever get sort of fed up with just, you keep making decisions and then another decision, you strive, you do this and you do that, you help another person. I don't need much for myself, so you give yourself for others and whatever, but there's a time when you need to recharge. And that's what stillness is. And we all have questions, difficulties, problems, things we need to solve. And a lot of times, you don't find the answers in an old fat monk like me. You don't find them in thin young nuns. Saying that to get on their side. You don't find that in books. It's the books pointing you to something in a great stillness where answers are not found, but answers evaporate. They disappear. Weird, but so true. And it makes you wonder, where do those thoughts come from? And are they completed when you find an answer? Or is it just another question comes right after you find one answer? Or is there another possibility to having questions go to peace? Or places where there are no questions, because there is no business to find answers to, where there is a sense of satisfaction and peace, contentment, everything in its right place, weird though that might sound, nothing to be added, nothing to be taken away, no problems, no differences, no separation. So, where do the questions go? They go to where they belong, because they can't come inside of that stillness. Only peace, contentment, wisdom, and of course, kindness, compassion. That's the only thing which is allowed in the silent room of stillness. So, I'm sure that you've had experiences like that, to be able to find a place where no one else goes, your own little area. One of those memories again, which is seared with the freezing, it's frozen into my brain, because at that time it occurred in UK many years ago, when the temperature outside was minus 26 degrees. That is cold. And I recall, because I was only visiting this monastery, everybody else had a job to do. I sort of was free that morning. And everybody else was far too sensible to go out at minus 26 degrees in the snow, in the English forest. But that was such a great decision I made, because it's the middle of winter, going out wearing boots and as many jackets and scarves and jumpers as I could find. And when I went out into the forest, it was so still. Nothing moved except me. Every sensible person was in bed tucked up. Every animal was hibernating. Every bird had migrated. Every car was snowed in. Every aircraft was grounded. Nothing was moving except me. Only until I stopped. And when I stopped, have you ever had that experience like the whole world stops, the whole universe makes no sound? In those moments of incredible deep stillness, I didn't want to take another step, to make the noise of the crunching snow. There was no wind. There was no leaves on the trees to rustle, because they were the old deciduous trees. And nothing moved at all. It's like in those gaps between sound, when nothing needed to be done. There was a sense of like perfection. You couldn't think. That's also why I like caves. Somebody, I don't know where they got this from, but they got this beautiful papaya for me when I was in California. And I said, no matter how delicious that was, it's nothing like the most delightful papaya which I'd ever tasted in my life, which was at the entrance to a cave in the north of Thailand, where I spent so many hours in silence and stillness. And because it was a bat cave, the bats would fly in and they would poo. They said poop. They would shit on the way in and they would shit on the way out. And so just that was actually where all of their feces went. And there was an incredible, delicious papaya tree just at the entrance. And that is the origin of that simile which I often give, that the truckload of dung. When life gives you all this shit in your life, it makes delicious fruit and vegetables. And that if you get dog poo on your feet as you go out from this place, you must always make sure you take the dog poo home with you. Never scrape it off until you get home and under an apple tree, a mango tree, whatever tree you've got in your backyard. Scrape it off there. And your mangoes, because it was California, they actually do allow some recreational marijuana now. So I was telling them, take it home and plant it underneath your... But I thought, I better not say that. Because that's against our precepts, and it's not really good for you. Maybe medicinal use anyway. But you'll get some incredible stuff, because it's empowered by the fertilizer. So that mango was just so delicious. Not mango, this was a papaya, was so incredibly delicious. But it also reminded me of the cave where those bats would live and where I would live as well. Still. And you didn't need to meditate. Meditating was almost like disturbing the stillness rather than allowing the stillness to come in. Every time I did something, it's like blocking this natural peace and stillness of this moment, which was there for you, just like the cool of a nice place in the hot weather, or here like just the warmth and acceptance and coziness and embracing in a place in the cold. It was like the stillness was there, embracing you, keeping you just the right temperature, like a blanket of peace. That is why the stillness becomes so therapeutic and also healing. sometimes people like to, have a talk. They like to be given advice. They like to have a chat. But sometimes some of the best advice is just sparkling eyes of kindness and acceptance, saying, you don't need to do anything different than you already are doing right now. Please be at peace in this moment. There's nothing lacking in you. You may think there is, but this too will pass. Just be, knowing there's nothing wrong with you, you're fully accepted and embraced. Because those were the great experiences I had with some of the greatest teachers I've known. Going into their presence with all these questions. I don't know if you ever had that experience. We have all these questions and they're very well thought out, they're very profound, and they're just very... But then you go into their presence and everything vanishes. That the questions seem to be sacrilegious, just disturbing the peace, disturbing that silence, disturbing the kindness of whatever you find of a great person, a great teacher. And first time that happened to me, it just never left me. This monk, Ajahn Tate, his name was. So just travelled for days to get to him. I just had all these questions. I knew that I only have one chance, about half an hour. And just getting into his presence, and everything went quiet and peaceful. And I noticed there that stillness, it has another angle to it. Stillness is always accompanied by this huge compassion and kindness and love. It's like the love is such an important ingredient of stillness, whereas its stillness is the ingredient of that love, that compassion, that acceptance, that embracing, that opening the door of your heart unconditionally. No strings attached, no need to argue, no need to ask for anything more. Everything getting so still and peaceful. And you feel this is great acceptance, kindness, just being. You feel you don't need to improve. That's the most important part of this. I often sort of put down. I don't know if it's put down, I think there's too much importance given to the self-improvement movement. Do you really need to improve? Get another degree, another attainment, another... What else do you want? Aren't you good enough? Sometimes when I look at people, just gorgeous people, beautiful people. Why do you want to improve? One of the talks which I was attending at in this big conference I went to in Berkeley was, please excuse me too, that the land of the free has I think about half the number of people put in jails. 2 million right now people in jail in the United States. And why can't we do something about that? And just even here, are you really free? Is it freedom when somebody makes a mistake, stupid mistake? Yeah. But why do we even destroy the victim? Can't we do something else? And obviously that this is something where I might say they have been successful. When people go into a prison, or even they come here, there's so many prisons in our life. Prisons of mental illness, prisons of depression, prisons of fear, relationships where we're not really happy to be here, we're afraid. How do we escape from those prisons? What do we do? That is actually one of the reasons why that had such success, breaking people out of jail. Not the normal way. The jail which they construct around themselves by looking past what they can see. way beyond those walls which they put up out of fear. They don't want to look too deeply inside. They're afraid of what they might find because they've already been told there's something terribly, terribly wrong with them. They're schizophrenic. They are, what's the word, psychopaths. They are. Is that really the case? Maybe in psychology, psychiatry, neuroscience, that has nothing to do with what I know about Buddhism, and especially what you discovered about the nature of the mind. Actually, to know there's way more than that. Maybe that's all the person has seen in themselves, and they act that out. But as a Buddhist monk, you've been trained to look way, way deeper. Look way, way deeper into your own body and mind. You'll be amazed what you find there. The beauty, the wisdom, the kindness, the insights, seeing things in a totally different way. Even just seeing things like the importance of stillness and the power of it. Be still. And know that thou art God, if you like. Beauty, energy, the Buddha nature inside of you, whatever you wish to call it. And encouraging people in jail to see things like that. And it's wonderful, incredible to see what happens. What? You mean I'm not a loser? There's not something fundamentally wrong with me? There's something which can never be fixed up? That there's something which is I've got to suffer for the rest of my life? Or even many more lives? No? Beyond those barriers of self-respect, of being kind to yourself, allowing yourself to smile, to love, to be happy beyond all those walls which you've put up. This incredible person, being, so afraid, but which needs to be known, embraced, understood. How many of you have made stupid, terrible mistakes in your life? Of course, we all have. And how many of you drive that deep down inside of you and it just festers like any other toxin? Instead, we go there to the deepest parts of our mind, and what we see there, we transform with kindness, with peace, with stillness. And in the stillness, these things can come out and be seen for the beautiful things they are, to touch your own heart, so you can touch other people's. You can only do that in stillness. Wait, patience, allow these things to come out, to grow in their own time. Stillness means patience, waiting. Waiting for the flower to grow. Waiting for all these teachings, all this advice from wherever you found them in this life to germinate. The seeds are there. Soon the rain will fall and these beautiful blossoms will open up. Sometimes it does feel painful, life, but be still, wait. Somebody told me it was just like, this was years ago, I was reminded of it today. It's like a blossom, a lotus, a rose, whatever it is in your garden. And you can see that it's growing, and it's growing. But the outermost sheath of that bud is all closed, and you can see it swelling inside. You can almost feel, if you're sensitive enough, that the pressure of this bloom inside the sheath, waiting to burst out. And then one day, the rosebud splits open, This incredible, fragrant, beautiful, deep-coloured rose opens out, and you know, without pain, something happening, some growth, some insight, some birth happening comes from, and it blossoms, and it's beautiful, and that's you. Sometimes you never think that from that stillness anything good can come. Sometimes people always feel that they are lacking. You're just a bud about to burst forth, blossoming, blooming, just bringing joy, fragrance, beauty to everyone who passes by. You may even get picked up and put as an offering in front of a Buddha statue on a shrine, or given to someone as an act of love. It's weird. Maybe it's my karma, but then, that I used to give bunches of flowers to my girlfriends. Only one at a time, one girlfriend at a time, when I say girlfriends. I was a good monk. And now people give flowers to me. Weird, because I'm a monk, to give to the shrine or whatever, I don't know, but anyway, it's nice. So anyway, this is the way that our stillness can actually give us peace, can give us wisdom, can give us kindness, and also grant yourself a moment of peace. And it can go so much more deeply. The deeper part of peace or stillness is where you start to really wake up and energize. I tell people, this is my trick. I learned as a monk how you can be supposed to be really tired, how I should be asleep, doing far too much work, sometimes having to give a talk at hours when I should be fast asleep, because San Francisco, it's 9 hours different somewhere or other. I don't know if it's 9 hours in the past or 9 hours in the future, but it's past my bedtime. And I just got over the jet lag, from flying from Perth to California, and now I've got to readjust from California back to Perth. It was about 2 weeks trip. So, how can you perform when you're really dead tired? Easy. Go still, peaceful, not fighting, not wasting the energy. And you can feel just all the body start to get its energy starting to roll. Feel that you're waking up. Your mind is getting empowered. I don't fight. Sit there, close your eyes. Your head starts almost touching the floor. And you feel the energy just rise inside of you. As you get awakened, energized. And through that stillness, just need to get a certain stillness, nimittas. If you want to know what those are, you can come to the meditation classes tomorrow or the next days, or see them online. Come on a retreat. These beautiful nimittas come up, and you get energized. Free energy into your mind. Not just the energy of a cup of coffee, but the energy of a purity of mindfulness, stillness, power. And then you understand where wisdom comes from. Wisdom comes from seeing clearly. How often can we see clearly when we're tired? When our energies are so low? How can we even contemplate doing things like deep forgiveness? Open the door of our heart to ourselves, kindness, and its great beauty. How can we do that when we're just too tired, or just thinking just all over the place? Even how can we stop thinking and be still? Not by force, but with kindness, peace, happiness, stillness, joy. All of that comes from just learning how to be still. And even to sum up before because time just goes way past what I thought was the time already gone, that there was one of the mathematicians, philosophers, what was it, Pascal, Louis Pascal. Is there any mathematicians or scientists here? Pascal's theorem. Anyway, Louis Pascal, 300, 400 years ago, said all the troubles of man, and he meant not just males, the whole world, all the troubles come from not knowing how to sit still. I love that quote. I don't know where he got that from either. Stillness, peace, health, wisdom, kindness, seeing another way for our world. It certainly needs a lot of help. At least when we're still, we're doing no harm. But when we're still, we are healing. Healing our body, healing our hurt, our pain, healing our ill will. It's one of the reasons why when somebody said, well, how do you know the difference between stillness and sleep? It's pretty simple. There's all these tricks we learn as senior Buddhist monks. If somebody comes and says, oh, they were just so still, I said, no, you were snoring. I said, I wasn't snoring. Yes, you were. I heard you. I said, no, I wasn't. And I said, well, actually, you weren't, but I was just testing you out to see if you got upset. Because if you get upset, you're not still. You haven't got the energy, the joy, almost like the force field, which, not really a force field, which protects you. You know, when you're so happy, so nice, so good, you had a beautiful meditation, being still and peaceful, resuscitated your energies, your resilience is immense. And the simile there, which, I'll do this quickly because I promised I'll finish soon. The simile there is, I've given this before about a month or 6 weeks ago, the guitar string. The guitar string is pulled apart, something hits it, bing! But imagine that same guitar string not stressed, not under strain. It's loosened on both ends. Makes no sound. If you punch it, if you hit it with a hammer, the guitar string will not make any sound at all because it's relaxed and loose and still. It makes no sound. And the same with your body. When it's really relaxed, like a guitar string, not pulled on either end, not under stress. Imagine when the bugs of life, the viruses, the flus, whatever else it is, when you're really relaxed, you're resilient. When you really just had a deep state of stillness, no one can upset you. Stupid, fatso, whatever they call you. I know my life I've never met such a fat, stupid monk who can't even keep his robes on. 45 years. So, but if you're still and peaceful, no one can upset you. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You go to work and then boss says, you're really late, I need to start now. I said, okay, boss. And they look at you and say, what drugs have you been taking? Stillness. We've already done ecstasy, but this is where ecstasy comes from, stillness. Beautiful. And it's also the wisdom. People doing exams. Oh, I promise. Can you hit me if I just not yet, but if I carry on after another 1 minute or two. In exams, why do people worry? Think. Just to be still. Before you've read the question, learn how to be still. Then write the answer. invariably turns out to be correct. See the question, start thinking, invariably turns out to be wrong. Stillness is the way. So anyway, I just thought a little bit about stillness today, and just, even though I should be half asleep by now. Anyway, thank you for listening. Sadhu, 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 sadhu. Sadhu. Okay, yeah, that's good enough. So, any questions? First of all, from the audience here. Oh yeah, one over there, yeah. Sorry? Of course you can.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now?
That's about it.
Yeah, just learn. But when you go on a Buddhist retreat, you just, I wouldn't say go on but disappear into a Buddhist retreat.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah.
You've got to find one where they are, but you can find one right now where you are in your home. Anyway, here we go. Wow, we got 4. From Florida. How can one find stillness when one has ego delusion? I'll let go of the ego delusion. And how can one learn to distance oneself to let go of ego to find stillness? Oh, sometimes we trick you into letting go of your ego. In other words, one brilliant way is Ajahn Brahm used to say, we meditate to let go, not to attain things. Attaining things just builds up your ego. Letting go is a path which leads to stillness. And just like the simile of the guitar strings, tight, that's like an ego. Loosen up, then no one can make you sound. So anyway, little by little, ego delusion causes you pain and stress and lack of self-worth. You're supposed to have an ego, but then you find out what the ego delusion means. The ego is no good enough. So I often say, ego, she-go, we all have to go sooner or later. From USA, Huyi, when others suffers and I cannot help them, being still is difficult for me. If you cannot help them, then if you are not still, it just means that you are just another problem which needs to be helped. Sometimes, instead of helping them with words and actions, helping them with stillness is a powerful teaching. Even when next weeks, when the monks go on retreat, when the nuns go on retreat, just knowing they're there, meditating. When I did my 6 months silent retreat, not talking, not even seeing a human being for 6 months. When I first of all, I just did it anyway, but afterwards I thought, have I really been a bit just too selfish, looking after my own bliss? What about all those other people I could have been teaching at the time in those 6 months? No, afterwards people thought, wow, thank you so much. That was so inspiring to know there was somebody sitting in Bodhinyana monastery, really meditating, not doing anything, not seeing, not talking, for 6 months. And that was impressive. And so actually that for you, what a wonderful thing it is in the world, for you actually to help other people by building up your resource of stillness. And afterwards it spreads around the world. So, others suffering, I cannot help them. You cannot help them because you're helping them in the wrong way. Learn how to be still. And it's amazing how you can help others. I think I'm fair enough to say I help a lot of people. So, I help them more through stillness. Is accepting the imperfection of the world a part of stillness? Oh, just, when there's nothing to do, learn how to do nothing. When there's something to do, give everything you've got. So I'm sometimes very still, but I'm also very active as well. The two go together. From New South Wales, how do we become still? With all the worry, my mind won't switch off at times. It's not your mind. Don't own your mind. It's just mind doing its thing. Just like when you visit somebody else's house, you don't need to do the washing up for them. At least when you go to a restaurant, you don't need to wash up at the restaurant. Imagine if you went to a restaurant and then you offered to do the washing up afterwards. No, you paid your bill already. You don't wash up at somebody else's restaurant. So because it's not yours. If you visit a friend for dinner, you don't sort of clean the table up afterwards. You're a visitor, not an owner. So that if you understand how to be a visitor to your mind, to your life, not an owner, it's much easier to let go. Be more of a visitor to your mind. Don't own it. Then you're just a friend. You're not a blooming control freak. Mind, you sit still. You switch off, come on, switch off. Says a mind, okay, you can switch off if you want. You don't have to switch off if you don't want to. Whatever you want to do, mind, I love you, I care for you. It's not my mind anyway. Of course it stops it. How can I calm my racing mind? Don't you calm it. Let the mind race. Let it be. And it stops. And lastly, Beverly from Berkeley. Thank you for the advice you gave me during your visit. My meditation is such a good freedom, never experienced before. Yay! Thank you, Beverly. It worked. So, what I say of going overseas, in Berkeley was the main place I went to over there. It actually works. So, but I always come and bring the best teachings back to Perth, to my friends. So, thank you all for listening. Any other questions before we go off? Great. Okay, good. Okay, so still can ask a couple of questions for that 10 or 15 minutes, but don't keep me long because I have to get back to Jhana Grove, where there's some other people come all the way from Hong Kong and Indonesia to participate in a meditation retreat. And I'm supposed to be teaching it. This is like playing hooky. Like moonlighting, that's what it's called, isn't it? Moonlighting, having a second job. Okay, so let's pay respect to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, then we can go do what we need to do. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Very good. Jolly good chair.